We'll start off with a refresher on a perfect square trinomial and how to write that as a square. So recall we normally put these in the form x squared plus bx plus c. We're now going to later on look at putting an a value in front, but for now we'll stick with just the basic form. To decide what do we need at the end so that we can factor this into a perfect square, we look at the b term in front of the x. We are going to take that term and divide it by 2 to get something like negative 5. This would be x minus 5 squared. To find our missing end term, we take that negative 5 and we square it. In this case, that will be plus 25. And we can do something similar with each of these. So we're going to take the term in front of the x, divide by 2. This one will be x plus 8 squared, and 8 squared is 64. If we just have no coefficient, that's like having a 1 there. So that will be x plus 1/2. We'll keep it in fraction form, squared, and 1/2 squared is 1/4. Negative 1/3 will be half of that as well, so x minus 1 over 6 squared, and negative 1 over 6 squared is 1 over 36. We kind of get the pattern there, and we can do the same thing even if we have a variable in there. If we have a minus n, that's going to be x minus n over 2 squared, and minus n over 2 squared will be n squared over 4. So we kind of see the pattern there. Going forward, we're going to look at how to now deal with these if we have something in front of the x squared. Let's take a look at this example. So this one is already worked out for you, but let's take a look at the steps. We now have a negative 2 in front of the x squared. That tells us that when we are factoring, we have something extra to factor out so that we can have a perfect square. So what we want to do is we want to factor out the negative 2. So let's start off by just rewriting this and factoring that out. And if I factor out the negative 2, that allows me to have an x squared. That kind of gets me in the space I want to be. Now if I factor out a negative 2, I also need to factor it out of the next term, so we'll have plus 2x. And then I'll be able to figure out something that needs to be added and subtracted there. However, my plus 1 at the end, I'm not going to factor out of that, I'm just going to leave it at the end. What I need to find is what's missing there. So if I have a plus 2x, what number would I add and subtract? And let's rewrite it with that added in. Y equals negative 2, x squared plus 2x. 2 divided by 1 is 1, 1 squared is 1, so we'll go plus 1 minus 1. We need to add and subtract it so we aren't changing our overall value. Now in this case, conveniently, that plus 1 there could have just stayed there, but we'll follow the step where we pull it out like we normally do. Now what I'm going to do is take the perfect square trinomial and rewrite that. Y equals negative 2. Those 3 terms get replaced with x plus 1 squared. Now that took care of those 3 terms, but we still have another negative 2 times negative 1. So negative 2 times negative 1. That comes from this minus 1 here that is also in the bracket and is also being multiplied by negative 2. And then don't forget at the end we also have a plus 1. So at this point I can try and kind of combine any like terms. I'm going to leave this part factored because I want it factored for vertex form. Minus 2 times negative 1 gives us plus 2, and then plus 1 will be plus 3. So our final answer is going to be y equals negative 2 bracket x plus 1 squared plus 3. And that's kind of the basic steps that we'll follow. So we're going to do that over a few times with some exercises that you have on your sheet as well. You can follow along on another piece of paper. All right, now this one is almost in the form we would like it to be, but I am going to rewrite it with the x squared term in front just to make it a little more familiar. So negative 5x squared plus 20x. Not changing any values, just rewriting. Now, let's start off by doing our factoring. and I'm going to factor out a -5 since that's what's in front of x squared, leaving me with x squared, and if I factor out -5 from the other term, we'll have -4x. Okay. Seeing the x squared minus 4x, I need to decide what goes in there, and we can actually put this in at the end. Let's just pop it in there. I have a -4, so I can take that -4, divide it by 2, and then I'll square it. -2 squared is 4, so we'll go +4, and also -4. That way we're not changing the value of anything. What we do next is look at our perfect square trinomial that we just created, and we'll write this as y equals -5 times x minus 2 squared. But I also have this -5 times -4. So our answer will actually be -5 times x minus 2 squared plus 20. And that is our vertex form. Okay, so far so good. We're going to keep doing the same thing, but just make the problems a little bit spicier. So starting off with this next one, we're going to do the same thing and just rewrite it, factoring out the 3. So if I factor out 3, I will have x squared. Now, -2 doesn't really have a 3 I can factor out, but I am going to have to factor it out, so we'll just do that with a fraction. If I write -2/3, then once I multiply it by the 3, that will give me the -2x that I need. I'll pop that on the side so we can see it. 3 times -2/3 will give us the -2. So I'm factoring out that 3 because I need to have the 3 factored out, so we have an x squared. All right, we're going to figure out what we need to add and subtract. We'll do that after. I'm going to leave the -1 on the outside. Now we look at our b term, -2/3. -2/3. We're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. So that'll be -2/6, or -1/3 squared. So I'm going to go +1/9 -1/9. Okay, again, I'm going to take my first 3 terms, perfect square trinomial, and we'll write this as 3 times bracket x minus 1/3 squared. And then we have 3 times -1/9. And then we have a -1 at the end. If we're wondering where this -1/3 came from, I remind you of what we have there. That is our b term divided by 2. That's why we know that's what's going to be inside our perfect square. And we're going to do whatever we can to kind of combine our constants. So we've got 3 bracket x minus 1/3 squared, -3/9 or -1/3, and also -1, which I'm just going to write as 3/3 so that I can combine my fractions. And we get y equals 3 bracket x minus 1/3 squared minus 4/3. All right, on to the last one. So we're starting to get the pattern here. Now the one thing that's different about this one is our coefficient in front of the x squared is a fraction. That's okay. That just means when we factor out, we're going to factor out a fraction. So I'm going to factor out 1/2 in front, meaning I will write x squared. Now instead of plus 4x, if I factor out 1/2, that's going to be plus 8x. Just going to make a note of that on the side. If we do 1/2 times 8, that'll be equal to the 4 that we want there. Okay, we're going to leave our space for whatever number we need to add and subtract, and then we'll do a -3 afterwards. Okay, looking at our b value of 8, we're going to do 8 divided by 2, and then square it. So 4 squared is 16. We'll do plus 16 minus 16. And we're now going to take our perfect square trinomial and factor that. So we've got y equals 1/2, x plus 4 squared. Then we have plus 1/2 times negative 16 from this and this term here, and then a minus 3. So y equals 1/2 x plus 4 squared. 1/2 times negative 16 will be minus 8, and then we have another minus 3, so we'll just combine that to be minus 11, and there's our vertex form. All right, that's everything for today. So you're going to go to 4.1 and just continue the workbook problems, focusing on the situation where you now have ax squared plus bx plus c.